Thank you, Mike. It's really good to be here. We've had a couple of wonderful days. We've tried to accomplish a lot this weekend. We've had meetings of our executive committee. 8 of the 9 members of our executive committee met most of the day yesterday. We've had leadership training meetings and Robert Welch Club meetings. We've just had a lot of meetings, and they've all been enjoyable. There's been a great spirit, and for me, it's been a real great experience, wonderful experience to rub shoulders with so many of you faithful members of the John Birch Society. It's always fun in these occasions to talk to people who joined and became chapter leaders and participated in the early 60s. A number of individuals here have been involved since the earliest days of the Birch Society, and to share experiences over those years, and then to talk to others who have joined just within the last year or so, who are now pullers at the oar and functioning in volunteer leadership positions that we've had a chance to meet with. It's been very enjoyable. For the most part, we've known why we've been here and enjoyed this famous Southern hospitality. There was kind of an interesting experience, though. As I walked out by the literature table this afternoon, I heard a couple of fellows talking. They said, not really sure what they're celebrating. So I don't know what this is all about. Don't these fellows know that the 191st anniversary of the birth of Robert E. Lee is not until Monday? It was marked on my calendar. We could have planned a little better, but it's nice to know there is such a strong Southern spirit in the South. Been a lot of reasons for wanting these meetings, and we're going to be holding more of the regional meetings. Very much want for the members of the Birch Society to get better acquainted, not only with the names that you read in the bulletin, Tom Gow and Jack McManus. Jack McManus is no stranger to anyone, but often when he's in the area, he's speaking on specific subjects and so forth. And we want you to see these fellows in the roles that they have as the leadership of the society, and also to be able to, as we do at our council dinners and functions, to shake hands and get acquainted with the great individuals, men who sit on the council and the executive committee. So we're glad to be here, and we're glad to have this time with you. Why is there a John Birch Society? What's it all about? What's the mission? What's the purpose? The John Birch Society is to create awareness and understanding. We're an educational organization. It's just that simple. And what do we want to create understanding about? We want the American people to understand that the system that they have, their great constitutional republic, and the Christian-style civilization that made this the greatest nation in all of the world, is hanging in the balance. It's a serious battle. And people are not aware of that. They're kind of lulled into security where everything's great. Hey, I get offers for new charge cards twice a week. And our job is to help them understand that freedom was never free. Big price for freedom. Those generations ago fought and died for freedom. The John Birch Society is convinced that if the American people can wake up to what's going on, they can yet preserve this system, this great constitutional republic. And those principles, those Christian principles, those principles that rights come from God for future generations. And the other part of that challenge of a mission for us is we have the awareness that there's a conspiracy, that the erosion of the freedoms, the attack on the family, the attack on all things good is not happening by accident. But there is an effort. Robert Welch called it a satanic conspiracy. It is a satanic conspiracy, and in our 39 years, we've documented and proven beyond a doubt that conspiracy exists and has a purpose, an ultimate goal and an ultimate objective of seeing all nations and all countries and all people under its control. And it is a satanic conspiracy. And it has full intention that when those controls are secured, that anything considered a God-given right will be gone. Our job, which members of the Birch Society accepted and have been accepting for almost 40 years, is to expose and to rout that conspiracy and to grab their friends and neighbors and say these great principles are hanging in the balance. It's not an easy job. A fellow in the Bible said, "O watchman, what of the night?" It's not easy to be the watchman. In the John Birch Society, we're focusing on 4 specific areas. 4 main mission areas. One is to stop the New World Order, get out of the United Nations. This is the goal, the aim, the objective of the insiders, using the United Nations, other organizations, the control of world banks, etc., to create a New World Order. The stage has been set for years. Our youngsters, we, for heaven's sake, back as far as the 60s, going to movies or reading futuristic books, it was already presented that any recollection or commentary, I should say, on the future, anything of the year 2000 or later, would be a one-world government. So the stage is set in the minds of people that we're going to have to give up our freedom. And now the insiders wish to focus on that and bring that to pass. So a key area that all of these years we've worked on are campaigns to get us out of the United Nations, has been discussed, to stop the move toward a New World Order. Another of our key areas is that Congress is the key. We understand that. We understand it in the system we have, that in America, all citizens are represented in Washington by a member of the House of Representatives. Those members of the House have to go to them every 2 years to be revalidated and sent back to Washington. That House of Representatives has specific responsibilities, including being the controllers of the purse and also the powers of impeachment. That if people get into positions that they violate trusts, commit the kinds of impeachable crimes, then those individuals that represent the citizenry, those 435 members of the House, they have then the charge under the Constitution to start those impeachment hearings. And that's what this is. That's what this is. This is a wake-up call. We don't just have a parliament. Many countries of the world, they elect parliamentary members to support the party leaders. Well, we don't elect congressmen to support our leaders. We elect congressmen to watch our leaders, to be watchdogs, and to keep them in adherence to the principles of the Constitution. Another important key area for us in the John Birch Society is the preservation of the Constitution, this great constitutional heritage that we have. And the fourth is just simply to focus on building this organization, growth, to see that we take our message to more and more people, to create the understanding so that they'll do something. There's been over the years how many individuals, organizations that have a radio show or a television show or a newsletter, and they can say, yes, we wake the town and tell the people. Well, the John Birch Society can say, we wake the town and tell the people. But we wake them when we tell them to do something. We give them their marching orders. We draw them a map to the nearest chapter meeting. We give them assignments as chapter leaders and team recruiters and section leaders and speaker chairmen. We don't just wake the town and tell the people all the ain't it awfuls. We wake the town and tell the people that there's a fire and we need a fire brigade and we need them to help put out the fire. And then we also need their help to go after the arsonists that started the fire in the first place. Mr. Welch made it clear in the early days of the John Birch Society that if you take those four key mission areas, the one that's important has to be the first. And it has been in our bulletin all those many years. Number one is recruitment. Because that's how we know if we're successful. That's the barometer. That's the way we judge if we've been successful in our educational efforts. The Birch Society and the presentation that we all saw for so many years, this is the John Birch Society, and Ed said, just because we're individualists doesn't mean we have to move our pianos by ourselves. No, we can link arms. We can work together. In fact, we must. The job is just too big. I just couldn't concur more with what Jack said a few moments ago about Clinton and the perception, the huge Madison Avenue PR job, that Clinton is so secure, so smug, this Teflon president, this man that's violated everything that's decent, as if the American people not only accept it and embrace it, and in that PR blitz of arrogance has now even started talking that there might be a move to repeal the 22nd Amendment so that he could seek a third term. Baloney. It's all PR. It's all nonsense. It's the emperor that has no clothes, and those that have told the emperor that and the citizenry that live in that constant fear that somebody's going to figure it out and everyone will look foolish. This man's enormously vulnerable because there's still so many more good people than there are bad people. There's still so many more people that want to live by righteous principles. They love their families. They want good things. And once they recognize that there's solutions to the problems, they'll jump aboard. There's 250 million people here in America, a little more. Jack McManus often on a radio show will say there's more good people than bad people. It's just so true. We've got to wake them up, and we've got to get them aboard. Now, a number of people have joined. In fact, we've seen in the last few years a resurgence and a reinterest in all of this by younger people. These are people. They're not just numbers. They're not just some kind of statistics. These are men and women and youth. They're families and they're people that want to be involved. And we've got to reach out. Someone has taught them the fundamentals to get them started, and now the John Birch Society has to provide the rest of that organization and volunteer leadership and genuine interest from the members to keep them in. Over the years, we've lost people because they didn't get in far enough to start. We've got to extend a hand to so many people, bring them in and help them. There's so many pressures outside that take people away. We've got to keep them focused. Our sights must be raised. These individuals are just like you and just like me. And there's more out there. There's tens of thousands more. It's hard. When we've been in a battle, and some people in this room have been involved in this for over 30 years, how do we keep the intensity? How do we do it? We just simply must. Because the solution is in understanding. The solution is in awareness. This fellow that we're going to take to the mat, he didn't receive a majority of votes either time. He won on a plurality. In my opinion, for what it's worth, an insider orchestrated third-party plurality, a third-party candidate creating the plurality. He's vulnerable. The insiders have always tried to push as far as they could to see just what they could get away with. Mr. Welch would say, and did so many times in the bulletins, that they just push forward as far as they can, and then they'll take one step back as they accomplish their 2 steps forward. The insiders would have all Americans believe that this man with the litany of offenses is acceptable to the American people, and he's not. He's a criminal, and he needs to be impeached. If we are serious, and if we really understand that we can take this educational army of ours and we can really change the course of history, then it becomes necessary to come up with a plan. And that's what we've got to do. Every one of us have to take more seriously the challenge to grow. In 1997, we had growth. There's increase in membership, there's increase in leadership, there's increase in activity. But just imagine if in this next year we can add 10 or 20,000 new members to our ranks. They're out there. You know them and I know them. We go to church with them. They're in our neighborhoods. We've just simply got to come up with a plan and a commitment to go do it. Now, I'm still talking to a lot of the volunteers that attended sessions yesterday and today. Set goals. Mike Armstrong gave some recognition to chapter leaders whose chapters had doubled and tripled and more during this past year. Whether you're a leader, whether you're a member of a chapter, whether you haven't joined yet, join, set your goal, and let's see the John Birch Society grow. We have the program, we have the cause, and we have the leadership. We have the leadership because this organization is committed to the principles laid down by Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society. We adhere to those principles. Over the years, and almost 40 years, there have been all kinds of organizations that have splintered off and decided that education was too slow or what have you, and they were going to solve all the problems by organizing a splinter group to go refuse to pay taxes or go march around the block with their guns in some kind of a paramilitary deal, or they were going to form a posse comitatus, or they were going to participate in a fixation on some ethnic group or religion as being the sole problem, and if they did that, then somehow that was going to stop it. They've splintered off and they've gone, and they've, for the most part, most of them ceased to exist. But the John Birch Society has stayed focused, and its leadership, mostly I think because Robert Welch led the organization himself for 25 years, that those principles were set in concrete. And our members, our veteran staff people, they understand those principles and they stay fixed and focused upon them. It's not an easy job. What we have to do is not an easy job. But compared with the consequences of not doing it, it is easy. It is. And we've just got to put aside all the excuses and just roll up our sleeves and decide that it can be done. It's worth it. Robert Welch said, "All we have really done so far is demonstrate rather convincingly that we have the formula for ultimate success, and it is a very simple formula indeed, as must be the basic plan of every movement that changes the course of history. We must grow into an army of sufficient size, fighting with facts and truth as our weapons, until the enemy, with all its ruthless cunning, gigantic organization, limitless resources, and entrenched power, still cannot withstand the total impact of our unified strength and dedicated labors. This achievement, especially if within the time still left us before destruction and darkness would make a whole new start necessary, will require colossal amounts of money and of labor. But both are cheaper than blood and far smaller sacrifices than freedom. We ask for your help in realistic proportions to the size of the job ahead." Mr. Welch said that a number of years ago. The essence, the message is as true this very moment as it was then. We have a great opportunity. Again, it's been a pleasure to be here this weekend, to spend time with you, to visit with the volunteer leaders, to get better acquainted with our staff in this part of the country. I want you to know that we appreciate you. As we close, we would like to close a little bit early, so that maybe these fellows will stay around and would like to get even better acquainted. Let me end with a thought, a poem that I've always enjoyed in terms of this whole commitment. Be strong. We're not here to dream or drift. We have hard work to do and loads to lift. Shun not the struggle, face it. 'Tis God's gift. Be strong. Say not the days are evil, who's to blame, and fold the hands and acquiesce, oh shame. Stand up, speak out, and bravely in God's name be strong. It matters not how deep entrenched the wrong, how hard the battle goes, the day how long. Faint not, fight on, tomorrow comes the song. Let's all roll up our sleeves, do all we can to bring about less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. Thank you.